everybody. This is Michelle.
And this is the brunette, Julie. How are you, Michelle?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
What weather is it?
Sweater weather.
It's sweater weather. Sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
Okay, for all of you that don't know, that's a Saturday Night Live clip.
Oh, yeah. It's all over the internet right now.
Sweater weather.
Because it is fall and it's definitely, although today I was really feeling my fall fit, my outfit, and I had on a long john top with my black puffy vest and my baseball hat that matched the color scheme was going on.
And she was dancing in the mirror.
Yeah, I was like totally feeling fall. It was like kind of overcast and chilly. And I'm like, it's going to be a good day. And then I go out, I meet my friend for coffee. And by the time I'm done having coffee, it's like, I'm like dying because it's like 65 degrees outside. And that like whole sweater weather fall thing kind of went out the window.
I know. I was thinking this morning, I was like, okay, it's fall. I'm doing an open house and where the hell are my boots? I got to go find all my fall stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know where any of it is. So I kind of improvised.
Not that I was in a hurry for it, but I don't know. Today I was just feeling it, but I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, we're going to stop complaining about the Northwest weather because we know that all of you that don't want to move here don't care. So
yeah, anyways, there's that.
There's that. And there's the Mariners, last couple games of the season. For any of you who actually give a rip about baseball, I'm a total fair weather fan, admittedly.
I'm not really a fan at all.
And the Hawks are playing on Monday Night Football. So we've got some good stuff going on around here.
Yeah.
And we have a kind of a fun topic today that we have been throwing around a little bit.
I don't know if it's fun.
No, it's fun. It's fun. Well,
it's controversial.
Well, it can be controversial.
I think, for sure.
Okay, everybody. It's called the tipping culture. And
why is it a culture, first of all?
Well, the United States has its own tipping culture. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's also in some of the articles I was reading called, quote, tipflation, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Goes right along with the inflation.
Yeah. So, okay. I think this is something that we have been discussing. And let's just put it out there. We both are really pretty good tippers, I think. I think I'm a pretty good tipper.
I think I am too.
Yeah, good tipper. We'd worked in the restaurant industry, so we get it. We totally understand. We know that with the pandemic and things that have kind of evolved over the last few years, the service level on just about everything has changed. And so obviously the tipping hasn't really changed.
But it has.
Well, in terms of it being, the expectation has not really changed in terms of that.
But it has.
I've always thought that it was kind of a strong expectation to begin with.
Well, it's an expectation, but now it's like this. I feel like in some aspects, depending on where you're going and what you're doing, there's this entitlement wrapped around it. That's a whole other episode that we talked about. So I'll just leave it at that. But I feel like this tipping culture has indoctrinated this entitlement into it. And that's where I think consumers have what is known as tipping fatigue. And
I think knowing too what you're supposed to be tipping for, because
that too,
like we were talking about the different electronic systems where you check out now, they automatically have the screen, and it might just be the software.
Yeah.
Where it says the total
I've heard that.
And then a tip amount.
But it confuses people.
Well, yeah, because there's things you wouldn't be tipping for.
Right.
I wouldn't think.
No.
So, okay, let's talk just for a second about the origin. So do you know kind of how it started?
The origin of tipping?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so
Not
when
really.
I was doing some research, they were talking about it dating back to the Roman Empire, believe it or not, in medieval Europe. And so wealthy people would visit homes of other people and they would leave tips for the servants who provided them good service.
Okay.
I think servants is another way of saying maybe slaves.
Yeah,
You know,
probably.
depending upon the time frame. But in Europe, that's kind of how it started. And so you see that having transitioned to the United States in such a big way. So the restaurant industry obviously is the one where it's been the most prevalent and most common.
Sure.
And then you kind of have started to see it evolve into other places too.
Well, and I think with that, you take the word servants and service, it's evolved to the service industry, not just, specific to
servers,
being a waitress. Or waiter. But the service industry. So what all does that encompass?
Well, I think you will, like your people that do your hair.
Yeah.
There is definitely tips involved with that.
Yes.
And, like the gal I go to, she has her own shop and she doesn't work for somebody else. And so she's paying rent, she's paying all that other stuff.
Same for mine.
So, I mean, it's like I always and I love her. So I always make sure to tip her well. And I adore spending time with her. She's, I've known her since she was 22 years old or something. So we have a lot to catch up on usually.
If I ever left, I wouldn't. It would be like getting a divorce.
Yeah.
If I left Cynthia, that would be
Cynthia. She's not leaving you.
That would be a thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's been in my life for 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Well, there was a period of time, I think before that, where I was bouncing around to different ones. And then you're like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like it. Whatever.
Kind of like online dating.
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother story. No bouncing around there.
Much better.
I think we need to have another episode on dating because
probably
it's it's evolved over time.
Yeah.
And, we have our sweet friend Eileen as part of our little trio, and she's kind of booed up now. Although we're not going to say anything about his name or what have you. So, nope. But she's got a little happy smile on her face. She's met a really, really cool guy. So, but we definitely have more to say in the regard to dating. But anyway, for another day.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it did evolve from the Roman Empire, in old Europe and things like that. So now kind of modern day, we get into but let's just speak specifically of the United States. We're talking about the restaurant industry and then the hotel industry too. So I know, like, if you park your car or, you have with a valet.
Yeah.
I always give them tips. Then they bring it up to your room. Then you give the guy a tip that brings it up to your room. I mean, and then my thing, and I don't know if everybody does this or not, was the people that are cleaning your room and taking care of your room, nobody pays them.
Yeah.
I mean, they get paid shit, I'm sure.
Rick always, that's the last thing I see him do before we're leaving the room. He's always leaving money with the remote control on the bed.
Yeah, so they can find it. They know what's going on. But I always write like a little note and thank you for taking care of us, kind of a thing, and I'll leave that. And I've done that in a variety of different places. But when you travel, especially when you're there for more than one day, and people are coming in to clean up your room and everything, I don't know. I just like to do that.
And certainly.
I don't want to stand out from the rest of the people in the hotels. I just want to be like, I want them to remember that I was a nice person.
Yeah.
In case anything, happens in the hotel with bad people. But so the hotel industry, and then, if you go for a massage. Yeah. Or to get your eyebrows done or to get your nails done.
Nails, eyebrows, massages. What about your dry cleaner?
No, I haven't tipped my dry cleaner. But to your point.
So what's the difference? You know what I'm saying?
I know.
I mean, they're like doing your clothes and ironing them and get them all like.
Well, I mean, isn't that
I don't go to the cleaner, so I don't really know. So isn't it somebody's job to massage your back? If that's what they're doing?
So that's what I'm saying. It's like all of these things that we're talking about are their jobs. With the restaurant industry, if you really think about it, people, we are supplementing the business owners because they're paying their people shit.
That's how they get minimum wage now.
Yeah. Well, back in the day,
it was different.
I mean, our minimum wage
and there's a lot of states actually still that don't pay minimum wage. But here in Washington.
When you say minimum wage, are you talking about like the real minimum wage?
Yes,
because there's like a service workers minimum wage too.
In Washington, it's not. That's what I mean. And in the United States, there's I don't know the ratio because I didn't look it up, but there are a number of states that don't have to pay the real minimum wage to restaurant workers.
So what do they pay them?
Which is what it used to be when you and I were.
It was like $2 an hour.
Yeah,
something.
I got $3 something an hour, and this was in the late 90s and in the 80s. It was just a couple bucks an hour, and the money I made was my tips. When I got my check, it was just like, okay, a little bit of spending money, literally a little bit.
The check I remember would go towards paying your taxes. Because they would tax you on all of the tips that you were making. Yeah. They didn't necessarily tax you on the cash tips because they didn't, know what you'd have to obviously turn that in. But anything that's on a credit card or anything, I mean, you counted all that up and you got taxed on all of it. And then you get your tips at the end of the day.
It's never, I mean, truth be told, were we ever truthful on how much we made?
Well, I mean, honest, I will say I did not claim, I don't think I did. I don't think I claimed all the cash.
I pretty much just claimed what I made on the credit cards.
Yeah. I think that's pretty
because it was
standard.
like, that if that's 10%, you know, then I was good. Just claimed what was on the credit card tips, and everything else was just like, booyah.
I know. And it was so hard because I know you worked in one of the places that, you know, kids came in after the bars closed and, you know, they'd make a big fat mess and leave nothing. And you're just like having to clean everything up. And, I mean, that was a different type of service. With me, I ended up, you know, where I had the worst problem actually was I worked at this restaurant down on Shilshole Bay in Ballard. So the water, Puget Sound. And to all you Canadians out there, no shade, okay? Because maybe these were just the Canadians I ran into, but
there's her disclaimer.
That was my disclaimer. I don't think they really believe in tipping in Canada because literally the Canadians, and I'm not talking like one time, I'm talking every time. You knew when they came in that they probably weren't going to tip. It doesn't mean you treated them any differently, but I mean, there were other tables that were tipping. So, and your section's full and you're trying to deal with all of these different people and their requests. So I guess, you know, human nature would be that you would direct yourself probably towards where the people were actually being grateful for the extra services that you were providing. I don't remember thinking about it that literally I would roll in at 6:30 in the morning, take a shower, go to work. It was that kind of thing. And that was the age I was at. Yeah, I probably could have poured him a drink too. But so that was then. So now we've got, like I was saying I think I've sent you a couple pictures, Michelle, we'll probably post. But the checkout thing, like just recently with Starbucks, probably in the last year, they changed their checkout program. So when you're using your card, it actually has the place for you to put a tip. Whereas before they didn't. Coffee
is a big thing here in Seattle.
Yeah.
As everybody knows, I think that's one of the things we're like most known for. Coffee, Starbucks is here, and the number of coffee stands that there are everywhere. How much do you tip your barista for that $5, $6? Of course, now it's like $6 and $7.
Oh my gosh.
Coffee.
Yeah.
When you get it, but what do you?
I always, so let's just say I don't really like the Starbucks. I always do. Well, if it's like $5.70 or $6.70 or something, I just give them an extra dollar. So it's like $1.30 or whatever. Yeah. I mean, and I remember in Mill Creek when we lived out there, I counted when I lived out there 15 coffee stands between a Starbucks and all the little baristas and stuff between my house and the freeway.
Yeah.
There were so many of them. Yeah. And I don't think it's like that everywhere. That's kind of a Northwest thing. I mean, I don't think it is, right?
It is.
In other places.
What?
Coffee.
It's not. Like when I go visit Rick in Indiana, there's like no coffee stands like that.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
They're a little behind.
Anywhere. Starbucks. It's like you go to Starbucks, they have those, but the independent little coffee stands,
they don't have them.
I've never seen one. Not where we go. Not where he lives, anyways.
Well, they have now set up to where you can actually tip the baristas there, because if you went through the drive-through or whatever, I mean, I just didn't really pay that close of attention to it, but I always tipped at my little small ones. So I mean, what's the difference?
Right.
I was chatting with somebody. This was a couple months ago. And they were talking about their son and his wife had gone out for I almost said graduation, an anniversary dinner, new restaurant in Snohomish County. So out here, it's just north of Seattle. And it was a steak restaurant, some really nice place, right? And so he and his wife, and they ended up ordering one of those like 22-ounce porterhouse steaks or whatever, and they split it. And then they got their little sides, a bottle of wine. I don't think they even had dessert. And their bill was like almost $300. And
wow.
When he looked at the bill, not only did it have the gratuity at 20% included, and they didn't have great service.
Just 2 people?
2 people, yeah.
And gratuity included?
Well, when they got the bill, the gratuity for 2 people was included, which I haven't seen that really taking place. That's starting to happen
like for
now.
5 or more, like a party of 5 or 6 or more.
Which I can kind of understand.
Which I get it. Yeah.
Because they're spending a lot of time on those tables, and then everybody wants separate checks and all this stuff, and half the people don't leave anything. Anyway, so they had the 20% gratuity included. Then they had a service fee. Didn't say what it was for, but it was a service fee, just an amount. And then there was another tip out that was for, I think it was for the kitchen. So, and typically when you're serving a table or something, my understanding has always been that you're tipping out the kitchen or you're tipping out your bussers.
Yeah. When I was a
whatever.
waitress, we tipped them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, those were funds that are getting provided by that couple. And it's like, geez Louise, that's $300 for dinner for two people.
And what happened to...
And they split a steak.
I mean, of course, we're getting on this a little more because you and I have both been in that industry.
Right.
So, we're kind of in a little bit of a rabbit hole here, but whatever. I think it's the most well-known as far as tipping goes, the service and the food industry. But back in the day, the tips is how you made your money. And that's why we did tip out the kitchen and the bussers. Right. And the host or hostess.
Well, honestly, if you didn't tip them out, they're the ones that are sitting your tables,
they're
clearing
turning
your tables.
Yeah. They're giving you the people. They're turning your tables. They're cooking your food. They're doing all this stuff. So I always took very good care of them because that's how I would make more money and more quickly through my shift.
Right.
So, but yeah, not making minimum wage. And so you would bust ass doing the best you can with all the people, regardless of if you are getting the tips or not getting the tips.
Well, that's the thing is like, you don't really know.
And that's how you made your money. It wasn't because it was automatically included and, all of that. You literally were the one making the money because you knew people's names, you were good with the service, you took care of them, all of that stuff. It is just...
So I have a thought process on this that is probably not a super popular one.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to say, and it's just more of a kind of a thought process as an adult now, seeing all this stuff go around, seeing that a lot of these individuals, they work really hard.
They do.
And they're working funky hours and they're having to have a couple of different jobs to make ends meet. And to everybody who's listening in Seattle, everybody knows that it is a very high cost of living. And so now the minimum wage is close to $20 an hour or something. But the minimum wage is close to that and everybody's making that, but they're making their tips in addition to that.
Yeah.
So my thought process is through time, and I don't know exactly how it originally started, but the people that own the restaurants, they're not having to pay their people. There's a really high expectation, obviously, for providing great service because it has a direct reflection on that particular establishment. But they aren't paying their people shit in most places. And the people that are working there are relying on the money that someone is so graciously going to provide for them, no telling what that will be. And that's how they're living and surviving. Why are these business owners not paying their people? I mean, they don't even get, probably medical benefits or anything like that. They're not running it like a different business. I mean, like at Nordstrom where we worked, everybody made their hourly rate. Some people made commission, some didn't, but they still all got everything else that went along with it.
I think typically the restaurant industry years ago was what you did as a starter job.
Right. But it doesn't mean that it's not an important job.
Oh, no, I don't mean that at all. It was a very important job for me.
Right.
Back at that time. But I say that as a starter job because you get, a 16-year-old, going into the food service industry and, they're going to do whatever they have to because they want to make the money. This is like years ago.
Right.
This is not now.
Well,
now,
it's kind of the same now. I mean, Zoe was working in restaurants up until a few years ago.
And there's a lot of
different,
there's a lot of different types of food establishments. So there's a scale because, you get on the upscale. I mean, like in the late 90s, I was making $2,500 a month in tips.
Holy crap.
At a Denny's.
Wow. Well, people are drunk.
I worked
and
in
when
the
you
day.
wore your
this was
glasses?
a day shift. Day shift. Yep. And there's things. Yep. When I would wear my glasses, my tips were always better. I would wear.
Because she looked like a sexy librarian.
Say it like I looked smarter, I guess. I don't know. It was interesting, and they were just fashion glasses because I didn't need glasses. So I would intentionally wear fashion glasses because my tips would be better. And on Sundays, I wore my WWJD. What would Jesus do? I wore my wristband on Sundays because we would get the church crowd.
Yeah.
My tips were always better. So there's things you do in that way to make better money, but it has evolved and it's changed. And I think the pandemic had a lot to do with it. And that's why people now, it's like this, in some cases, I think, this irritation almost. And
I think it's a
tired.
pressure.
People are tired and they don't know when or how much or, should I
or should I not? Yeah.
You know,
or they get crappy service.
And you were saying in Arizona, you went to like a stone shop.
Yeah.
And they had...
It was just like a shop.
Like a gift shop.
Yeah. And they had like a little thing up on the counter.
For tips.
Yeah.
Why?
I know. I think I sent you a picture of it. Going, what the hell?
Like, why? I don't get things like that. I just don't.
Well, and like you said, with the pandemic, and we have an episode that's going to come up on the pandemic and some other things that we were going to talk about, but this is one of them. It's like the service expectations have changed, I think. I mean, I remember one of the first places that I went to with Amelia, Andrew's girlfriend, the pandemic was still going. So you were still wearing your masks, but and everybody was sitting outside. So we had brunch and we were sitting outside, but we sit down at the table, you've got your phone and you're doing the QR code to see what you're going to order. And then you order it on the app and pay for it on the app. And then we went and got our own water, our own glass, our own silverware, and they brought us the food and they brought us each our drink. And that was it.
And was the tip optional or was it included?
Well, you paid for the tip before you ever even got your food.
Oh, before you even did any of that.
Yeah. Well, if you were using your credit card, you did.
Yeah.
But and it was the first time I'd ever been, out in that scenario. So I was like, what is this? Is kind of weird, The expectation's still there.
Right.
This is kind of a little funny. Last year when we were in Mexico, I was with Jared and Zoe. We were at this restaurant that we'd gone to, and I had pesos. I had like a bunch of pesos and stuff. And the bill came, and I'm trying to figure out like the
exchange.
Yeah, the exchange on it. And I realized I didn't have enough cash to be able to pay the bill and leave a tip. So I was going to have to use my credit card. Anyway, the woman who was waiting our table came over and she goes, "That's not enough money." And she totally schooled me. Like she thought I was going to leave her.
She was letting you know.
Yeah. She was letting me know because maybe they deal with a bunch of people who come in and, don't.
I mean, I think people, I'm going to say, especially in the food industry, deal with that. I mean, it's the longest running history wise, in regard to, and the most well known. And I think the widest
reach really for people.
Of what people do in regard to tipping. But I think, just like I said, your dry cleaners.
Have you tipped your dry cleaners?
When you look at all the things, it's where is the dividing line?
I know.
Why don't we tip the dry cleaners? I'm sure there's people that do.
Well, you've got cabs, you've got Uber, you've got Lyft.
Cabs, Uber, Lyft, dry cleaners, restaurants, hairdressers, massage people,
nail people.
I think the ones that those are pretty typical. The ones I think in question might be, like I was saying, the dry cleaner. What about?
See, that never even occurred to me. To tip the dry cleaner.
But why?
I don't know. I just never did.
Think about the nature of what they do.
I know. They're with chemicals and everything.
Well, and they're doing your clothes.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to do your laundry.
But if you went to a laundry service, I would tip them. I would probably tip them. So actually that's actually a really good point. I never really thought of that. The other one that's come up, and because obviously what I do for a living, I have some people that I, refer out to others for a variety of things. And the movers, it's like, there's nothing that says you have to tip. There's nothing that says it's on a receipt, but people tip movers. And it's like, $100 that they'll tip the movers, 2 movers, and they split it 50-50 or something. Now that's not something that's really set in stone, but that's definitely something that happens. I always tip my movers.
What about the grocery clerk?
I don't tip the grocery clerk.
But that's one of the ones I'm saying. Why is it that we don't?
I don't know.
When you think of
I think it's like you said, it's gotten a little bit out of control.
A service industry. You got the boy at the end of the counter or the girl at the end of the counter that are bagging up your groceries. Used to be back in the day, they would walk them out to your car and people would tip them.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I did never have anybody do that.
Do you remember going out to your car with your groceries?
I had my kids.
I know. Yeah. And I guess growing up, I remember going to the grocery store, and that's what they would do is they would.
Oh, my dad would.
And my ex-husband's first job, and they always lived on the base, but he was like 14 and he was doing that, bagging up groceries and bringing them out to people's car and making tips.
Really?
Yeah. And we don't have them anymore, but the gas station attendant.
Oh, I know, but they do in Oregon.
Yeah, they do in Oregon.
So I think they must tip them in there.
I don't know if you can.
Really?
I don't know if it's a thing. So there's all of these, I guess I say all that to say, where are the lines?
Well, and then you kind of have to ask because you feel silly or feel like you're being a cheapskate when really you're not being a cheapskate.
Because when you get down to it, honestly, isn't everything kind of service? my insurance agent. I mean, they're doing a service for me.
But that's what I'm saying. They're getting paid. So is it more because these folks are on an hourly rate that is, well, in the service industry, maybe across the United States, maybe not here, but the hourly rate's significantly lower, and they're required to work with that wage, and they're relying on tips. So that kind of bothers me. I mean, it's always kind of bothered me that the people who own these places don't compensate their people very well.
I have to say, though, for me, when I was a waitress, it was never even a thought.
Well, of course not. I didn't think about it either.
So why is it now?
I don't know. Maybe because we're noticing it more. Or it's like we're the ones that I don't know.
It's like if truly, if you are good at what you do, and this is in anything, but we're talking about like service right now, and specifically in a restaurant, if you're good at what you do and you do it well, you're going to make good money on those tips. And I think if it were up to the restaurant people to pay their people a good wage, then you either have an establishment where you offer all of those things to your employees and don't expect the public to pay the tips.
Right. There's, I think, 3 places in Seattle now that there's a no tipping policy, and they pay their people $20 an hour.
So, I mean, like if you're going to have benefits for me and a 401k and pay me a good, and we're bringing in that repeat business or whatever, and you're making money for this business owner because of the establishment, the people that they have, and, the retention they get with the customer, then it's an establishment that they don't take tips and they do all that for their employees. Is the public going to support that?
Well, probably. So here's the thing. It's like you know darn well that increase that they're paying for their people is going to get passed along.
Yep, that's what I mean. It's going to be a high. Yep, it's going to be a higher priced meal. It's going to cost me to go out.
Have you looked at the menus lately? I mean, I was at some little cafe shop with my mom the other day, and we had a French dip that we split because it's so big. Yeah. $20 for damn French dip.
I know. Everything is just, there's inflation, there's what did you call it?
I don't know.
Tipflation, inflation, tipflation, and all the stuff. Everything is just, the cost of living is ridiculous. It's really challenging.
What can we do? I think we need to be able to kind of be okay with or be at peace with things. Because here's the thing though, Michelle, it's like when I go out, when I'm traveling or whatever the case may be, it's like, I don't want to not compensate people because I've been in that place before. But we were talking about this before. You're like, well, what if you get terrible service?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, what about when you don't get good service?
Well, I guess it depends. Are they, like if it's a restaurant or something, are they, do they have 10 tables that they are trying to manage on their own? It's not their fault.
But see, part of that, I think, only because it's what I used to do. Part of that is communicating with your customer that you have in front of you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
We're short-staffed tonight. I'm doing the best I can. I'm going to take good care of you. Trust me, your food's on the way. Whatever
Even if
it
it's
is.
cold.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you have to know that dialogue, and you have to know how to. Now, is everybody going to take that the same way? No. You're going to have the jack off. Or
what did you just say? I think she went to say one off, but that was a Freudian slip if I've ever heard one. Michelle!
You're going to have the jackass out there that is just going to be, excuse me, but a dick no matter what.
Yeah.
You can do all the things for them, but no matter what, they're just like, and they're going to stiff you and not leave a tip and whatever. That's just, they're out there. So whatever. But I think if you communicate part of the poor service aspect, the good service of the poor service is going to be the communication that you have with your customer.
Yeah.
And you can be slammed and at all the things, but if you have a good time, if you slide them a free dessert, whatever, you take care of your customer, whatever it is.
So the mentality that you are talking about really is kind of more a lot of the retail mentality that we had growing up, really too.
Yeah.
We obviously didn't receive tips.
So I had somebody who was telling me a story. They went to an establishment, and him and his wife, they ordered food. They ordered burgers, no mayonnaise, something like without it was special ordered, right?
It was probably me making up my own menu item.
So they brought the food and it wasn't right, right? They both had mayonnaise on it. It wasn't how they ordered it, right? So they sent it back and they brought it back and his was correct, but his wife's was still not right, right? Long story short, no comp. No dessert. Like, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. Like, it was just this long, drawn out situation, and they just like didn't take care of them. And those are the things that will make the difference. Like, if I brought that woman's food and it was wrong again, first of all, I'm going to pay attention and know that it's wrong and not bring it in the first place and make sure that the cook gets it right. Right. But if not, and you bring it and it's not correct again, I mean, I would be mortified. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. Let me make sure that we get it right this time. Can I bring you a salad while you wait? No worry about it's not going to be added to whatever. You take care of that customer and make it right. So those are the differences. I think that's part of what doesn't happen now very often. I'm not saying across the board and all the time.
No, but I think there's different levels when you're talking about 4-star restaurant, 5-star restaurant. Obviously, it's going to be a lot different than if you're going
for sure
to, something that's a little bit more casual. And the bill is obviously higher too. So then there's that other thing. It's like when you receive the bill, if the gratuity is it added on the total or is it added after the tax? I mean, what is it added on?
And I think sometimes people don't even realize that it's been included.
And that was what my mom was saying. And then they get
paid twice.
Yeah, they do it twice. Yeah. Or the alcohol. I mean, in some of these places, like I keep going into like downtown, some of these like rooftop places and stuff. It's like $20 a pop for a martini. Yeah. So you have each has one martini and there's 4 people. You've $80. Here's an $80 bill.
So back to, sorry, we kind of got it. I got on a tangent, but back to do you tip for poor service?
Oh yeah. We didn't answer that. Okay. So I do. I mean, I still leave a tip. It may not be 20%.
Right.
And I think it's probably closer to 15%. I would. But I mean, if they're rude to me, then I might not. I can't say that. I can't even think of a time when I've ever not, because I just feel like, I don't know, I just would feel like kind of sleazy if I didn't. That's just me though. Yeah. But I mean, if they're rude to me or they're just like, not paying attention or whatever.
There's so many things that unfortunately, because I was in that industry, as were you.
So long ago.
And I did it for a good almost 10 years. But when I go out to eat, there's just a lot of things I think that you are more apt to notice that are going on. I think having worked in the industry, you can tell when somebody's slammed. I'm a plate stacker. I stack all the things and put it on the edge of the table because I'm trying to make it easier.
I don't do that because I was trained that you don't do that.
For the server. I mean, as a customer.
Oh, I know. It's like I just leave everything. And I mean, like, because anyway, it doesn't really matter. But it was just the way I was taught. It's like it would be. Well, first of all, the fact that the plates were still there when they were finished, that was an issue. Yeah. They're left on the table and they're asking for their bill because you never came and picked anything up.
That's not good.
That's not good. Yeah. So to completely answer your question, I think that I definitely still do, because I feel like a lot of the things are out of their control. If it's the kitchen that's getting it wrong, or they've got too many tables in a section or whatever. I try to be as gracious about it as I can. Especially you see these. I mean, a lot of times they're college kids or whatever. They're just trying to make a buck and get through school. But I think now when we were talking about this tipflation or tipping fatigue, it's gotten to the point where, I mean, I'm spending so much money on tips. Yeah. Just to go through my day, I'm spending a lot of money on tips. And so, maybe it's because of the places I'm frequenting or what have you, but there has to be a point in time where you're able to very comfortably for yourself say, yeah, this is too much for me. This is more than I'm comfortable with. Yeah. So just to reiterate, it's obviously in the restaurant industry. It's like good service, 15%, great service, 20%. If people are adding things to your bill without your knowledge, make sure you're looking at your bill, because it could be, like you said, added twice. And if you got really poor service, you want to make sure that you're aware of what it is that you're paying for. obviously hairstylists, the nail people. I mean, they all get great tips.
Do you leave a tip when you get to-go food?
Yes. And the only reason why I've known to do that is because having worked in the restaurant industry, I know that someone had to ring that up and it went against their day. And that's all I remember. Like Zoe's even told me that before because of what she, was working at before. And I do. I never leave like a full 20% or anything.
Right.
No. I'll leave with 10% or what have you. They're not doing anything. They're handing me a bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you get in your car and it's wrong.
Yeah. And that has definitely happened,
Yeah.
You got to look at it before you leave.
Yeah.
But anyway, Uber.
So many aspects.
So it's the one where this kind of segues into is, I know you've noticed, and we've talked about this, the those little checkout thingies that are like at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And they all have
donation things.
Yeah. And it's really awkward because it's like, you think about how many times I end up going to the grocery store a week.
Yeah.
Or you go to Petco and it's like, donations for the homeless dogs or to adoption. Of course, I always do that for those. But it's like, it gets to the point where I'm just like, I get no.
I never do. Very rarely do I at the grocery store. When they have roundup things, sometimes I'm like, sure. If the clerk says, would you like to round up? Blah, blah, blah. I usually do because I know that's something that they're supposed to be saying and good for them for doing it.
But here's the thing. Do you even know where that money's going?
Right.
I mean, when they say we have this thing for, Children's Hospital or whatever, do you really know that money's going to Children's Hospital?
No, you don't. You just hope that it is.
Well, see, there you go.
Yeah.
It's like, I'd rather go through the appropriate channels and do it.
Just give it to the man on the corner then when you get off the freeway.
Yeah. I take issue with the man on the corner. Okay. So for all of you out there that do not live in an area where there is a large homeless population, we have on a lot of our freeway off ramps, obviously all the corners in the city, even now in front of grocery stores, things like that, people begging, they're asking for money. They're kind of begging, I guess. And okay, so I feel like I'm a pretty progressive liberal person, right? And so of course I want to help people. I want to help people, but I just do not have any patience for that anymore. It's been going on for so long. And for the most part, people, when you say no, or you say, sorry, can't help you, they're nice about it. But there's been times when they're not nice. And a lot of the time it's, we've got mental health issues and all kinds of stuff like that going on. I mean, these folks, I saw a van dropping people off kind of around the corner from one of the off ramps over here. And one of them takes north, one of them takes south. And then the other ones sit like in the woods.
It's an operation.
It's a total operation.
Yeah.
It's like, and we've created a huge problem by having people, by allowing that essentially. I mean, even like you pull up to the stoplight at the exit and they're walking right up to you and looking at you straight in the eye. They come
right up to your window.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just am like, nope.
Yeah.
I won't do it anymore because I'm like, if you're homeless, we have probably more resources in the city of Seattle or this county than any other place in the country.
Yeah.
There's so much money poured into this. You still can't tell where it's going, but that's beside the point. And
do we know where that money's going?
There is another topic right there. So anyway, we kind of segued off into begging from, or panhandling, I should say.
But tipping.
Yeah.
I think I always tip whether the service was good or not good. I do always tip, but to your point, it's not going to be the 20% if I don't get good service.
So let's kind of talk about where the areas are that we feel based on, our research and our own experiences are appropriate. If people want to tip, these would be appropriate places to tip. So restaurants. So does that include fast food restaurants?
No.
Okay. So there's service going on at fast food restaurants.
Yeah, I know that's what I mean. Like, where are all the lines drawn?
Yeah. But I mean, I don't either. Yeah. I don't tip at fast food restaurants.
I don't think they have the option to tip, do they?
No.
I don't think they do.
They might have the little thing out on the counter, but they don't have it on the checkout process.
Right.
But anyway, restaurants. So bad service or service where it's not great. 10%. Now there's a lot of people, my dad comes to mind for some reason. I don't know why. I don't remember having a conversation with him about this when he was alive, but he would just not leave anything if he had bad service, I'm sure. There's a lot. And that might be a boomer thing too.
we never even went out and ate.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I didn't go to McDonald's till I was like 7.
yeah, it was a rarity.
And then I slammed my finger in the door, so we never went back. Lost my... Anyway, that's another story. But anyway, so restaurants. And what about your hair salon?
Yes.
Okay, hair salon. And what do you tip for the hair salon?
It's usually about 20%.
Okay. And I noticed on the checkout thing that it said, what was it, 25%, 30%, or you could make
Custom.
up your own, or you could customize
You got to
it.
search out that custom tip, man, because it's like not the obvious choice
Yeah.
on a lot of those checkout things.
Yeah. So hair salon, massage therapy. That's another one where people receive tips. Now, some people probably don't tip. I don't know. I've always tipped, and I always do a pretty decent tip because, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, massage places, I would say, yeah. I don't go there that often, but...
And nail salons.
And nail salons, yes.
Nail salons, I tip them for doing my nails.
I do tip the barista.
And I tip the barista, which is a little bit different probably in the Northwest than it might be in other areas because we have so many of those.
And, you know, back to the folks that are on the corners, if there's somebody out there doing something to make money outside of just holding a sign, I mean, props to them for playing their guitar or doing something you know, to warrant wanting to make a little bit of money. So I'm all for that guitar case open. I'm going to throw them some change.
Yeah, like if they're playing out on the boardwalk or something.
They're doing,
Have you seen the guy playing his accordion?
No.
There's a couple of different, I think they're different guys, but a couple of different guys playing his accordion. And then he's got his wife and a couple kids sitting over to the side. Yeah, and their Cadillac Escalade parked in the parking lot.
Well,
what's wrong with that picture?
I mean, you know,
I mean, maybe it's not their car. I don't know, but I'm
what's I mean, they're playing the accordion outside and just not doing it in a nightclub.
Yeah, but I don't give them any money. They're on a corner, for God's sake. I'm not doing it. Boy, I sounded very different than I think.
And then there's, I mean, if you break it all down, honestly, everything is service out there. Our postman that delivers the mail.
I give them presents.
That's a service.
Yeah, at Christmas and
you
stuff.
know, the FedEx and Amazon, that's service.
There's even a way to tip your Amazon driver now through Alexa.
Oh, there you go.
You just have to tell Alexa to leave a tip.
There you go.
And it adds it, I don't know, to their paycheck
Whoever's
or something.
delivering the groceries, delivering the food, the DoorDash people, that's service. The dry cleaners, like I was telling you.
Yeah, I've never done that.
That really is a service. Hotels, all that good stuff. So
I think it's interesting that 2/3 of Americans, when they were polled through this particular poll that I kind of researched here, Bankrate poll actually, found that they had a negative view on tip.
I truly believe it's just within the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And mostly due to the pandemic and all of the things that shifted during that time when it came to all of this stuff. To your point, the story you know, when you went out and you essentially did everything yourself, but the tip was included ahead of time. Yeah. And there's not that choice. All of the jobs that changed and shifted, the availability of people that changed and shifted, the expectations that were out there to make up for, that's like that service fee you were talking about, to make up for all the money that was lost during the pandemic.
Yeah. And you're definitely seeing that now across the United States in restaurants everywhere.
Yeah.
And coffee bars. I mean, it's ridiculous that my coffee is like $6 for a coffee.
Yeah.
So it's a treat now.
It is a treat now.
I used to go every day.
I used to go all the time.
Yeah. No, I mean, I literally had like an issue. I went every day. My
name is Julie.
I have an addiction to coffee. No, I liked having my sugar-free white chocolate powder, and I have like my shots and everything in it. So it was like my little treat, you know, that I would have on my way to work or whatever.
I used to
doing.
do that too.
Yeah. So I've completely stopped.
Yeah.
And I make my coffee at home, and it hasn't been a hardship, but it's a treat once in a while.
Yeah. Same.
You know, I like today's, we went after the gym, we went and got coffee over at Starbucks, and it's like we just sat and had a little breakfast or whatever, and it was great, but that's not something I would normally do anymore.
Right.
So
and I think that has shifted also. The way people do those kinds of things has shifted. So where the industry has shifted, like I was saying, I think so has the consumer in regard to all of this.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And like you said, the tipping fatigue. So anyway, people out there, just know that if you are not a hermit and stuck in your house, well, you could have issues with that too in tipping if you have Amazon, because now you can tip Amazon drivers. You don't probably have to worry about this stuff too much.
But if you can't, also if you're of the mindset that you don't need to tip or you don't have to tip, I mean, you really shouldn't be patronizing those types of places.
Honestly, if people don't tip, I kind of think it's bad form.
It is bad form.
Yeah. Like I've been out before, and this is kind of a little like thing that you notice, you know, you've been out, like whoever pays the bill or whatever, and they don't tip. And it's like, I'm mortified. Yeah. I'm mortified. Like I'll slip them a 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
And which is probably not good either. But,
right.
But probably didn't go out with them again either. So yeah. Anyway, just something to think about. There's one area that when I was doing my research that there's a culture where it's kind of rude to tip.
It's rude?
Yeah, it's kind of a rude thing to tip.
Where's that?
That would be so Japan, but it's not customary to tip in China either.
Interesting.
Yeah, tipping in China is generally uncommon and can be considered rude or embarrassing in some circumstances. So when they're taking a taxi, say for example, or enjoying a cocktail, ducking into a place to get a meal or whatever, there's no requirements to leave gratuity. So I'm curious how those people are paid, or if it's just, they just are more poverty stricken.
I mean, if you think about it, if it was never a thing to begin with,
they don't know any better.
They don't know any different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. So, I mean, just to circle back and kind of think about the things that we've talked about here, the entitlement, we didn't really touch on that very much, like where it has come to. I do think there is a bit of a sense of entitlement wrapped around it, only because, like I said, over the last 5 years, especially through the pandemic, and this is what is expected. It's more of expected than it is like working for it, if that makes sense.
Like the woman in Mexico. I mean, that's not even here. That was in Mexico, but she probably deals with tourists who like stiffer all the time because they don't understand the exchange. I don't know, but there was a definite expectation there. Yeah. And you could look at it like entitlement for sure. Yeah. And I mean, I've seen that plenty of times when you've got people that get their,
And don't get me wrong, not to say that it's not deserved. It's definitely deserved, but I think things can happen better. People might make better money when you don't have that air about you and you truly are just serving the public in, the way, whatever it is, the establishment that you work for. Right. So, I mean, that's part of how you make the money. Right. It's like a fun game. I always, like I said, that's why the fashion glasses, the wristband, you just do things. It's like you make it a fun game and see what you can get out of it. But, it's kind of a fine line. There's a lot of establishments that, have that tip option on there, make it confusing. So I guess the message there is just be aware.
Or pay attention.
Pay attention of what you're paying for and what's going on. And if you don't feel it's warranted, then
it's not like Americans right now have a ton of extra money to throw around. Well, I mean, if they're able to go out and have dinner out and do things like that, obviously they should be able to pay for the meal and pay for all that. Yeah. But if you really look at tipping in general, it's kind of in my view, a tangible way to be able to show that you appreciate the hard work that someone has put into, or the effort that someone has put into making whatever experience you have pleasant or making it better, whatever, that's what it's kind of intended for. I mean, in my world, it's like, I don't get tips, but I get like flowers or I'll get, candy or teddy bears or cards or things like that. People are very appreciative of, whatever service that I give them. And that's the way I'm thanked for that.
And and there's people, I remember at Nordstrom, cause I was in the cosmetic industry and we weren't allowed to take.
Well, my customers were shoplifters.
Yeah, there's the difference.
They didn't have anything to give me. Well, way back when I was on the floor, I was like, I don't think you have anything to tip me.
But plenty of people that wanted to, but I'm like, no, it's just what we do. Yep. But mad props to all of you that are out there hustling hiney in the food service industry, for sure, especially having gone through it during the pandemic. we see you.
Mm-hmm. And these other industries that we frequent as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I have the hair industry. I've got the nail industry.
Nails, yeah.
Yeah. I've got all of the restaurants, those primarily. But I mean, there's definitely other ones out there too. But when it comes to the, at the cash wrap thing or the little jar at the cash wrap, I'm just like, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So.
Because you don't know where it goes.
I don't like not knowing where it goes. He's like, I work super hard for my money and I want to know where it goes.
She works hard for money.
So hard for you, honey. Okay, enough singing.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, you're all out there. Go have a really good meal. Make sure you're not double tipping, but make sure you take good care of the people that are taking care of you.
Yeah. And in the meantime, take good care.
That's right. Take good care.
Find us out on all the socials, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. And if you have any good feedback or ideas for us, send us an email to ablondebrunetteandamic@gmail.com.
Maybe we should do a GoFundMe. I'm just joking.
She's joking.
Yeah. Have a good one, everybody.
All right, everybody. Bye.